see the Cubs at plus 50, the Dodgers at plus 79, and the Diamondbacks, yes, the Diamondbacks at plus 44. Excuse me, there are 4. And the Reds at plus 41. I did the Reds earlier, so pardon me for my miscue on that one. You got 4 teams over 30. Who's close? The Phillies, plus 28. Okay? The Braves are only at plus 16. They're not outscoring opponents, and their pitching's pretty good, which tells me the Braves aren't scoring a lot of runs. Now, do you see possible, as we say, positive gains for the Braves after the first third of the season? Do you see the potential for the Braves to increase their run differential? I do. I do. Okay, and why? Not just because I think it, but because I look at what happened last year. Take the Braves' potentially best player, Ronald Acuna Jr. How many people drafted Acuna last year or picked him up early and held Acuna, say, till the 1st of July? Because if you did, you were disappointed. Because up until July 1st, Ronald Acuna would have never been National League Rookie of the Year. Go look up his numbers. I know what I'm talking about because I owned him last year. However, after the All-Star break, after it got nice and warm outside, Acuna went off. I mean off. Won National League Rookie of the Year. The Braves are scoring runs at an incredible clip. And I look for the Braves' run differential to increase. I look for the Braves, therefore, to win the East. All right? There you go. But those are the teams I'm looking at when I'm looking at trading for players. So, you look at the Diamondbacks, Lou. And I'm looking at some of the talk going on. You don't need a third baseman back. I mentioned Franmil Reyes for San Diego. How about Arizona? The Diamondbacks. Players on that team who are major contributors. And you're going to laugh, maybe, but Ketel Marte. Outfield, second base, shortstop. Escobar, shortstop, third base. Great numbers this year, both of those guys. Is there any reason to think they won't continue? I don't have any reason to think they won't continue. So if I'm trading and I'm looking for multi-positional guys, guys with good numbers, consider those two. And there are probably more. But those are two to look at. Okay? And a team that surprised me on run differential, Colorado. -1. -1. Playing at Coors Field, -1. And what's this talk about Eovaldi being the Boston closer? I tell you what, let's talk about it. I played that clip from Boston blowing the game last night at home against Cleveland. Those things get in your head. Those kinds of losses get in your head. And no worse time for that to happen now that Boston is getting ready to go to New York for 4 games. That could be this week, and I know it's a third of the season, but truthfully, this week could be a season maker or breaker for the Red Sox. You know, they started off slow. They came on. They started to hit, started to pitch. They look like the Red Sox, right? But this week is huge. And a game like they lost to Cleveland last night. I mean, come on. This year, up on Cleveland in the 9th inning. Boston's a better team overall, right? You think? They didn't play it last night in the 9th inning, though, did they? We'll see. But Eovaldi, if he were to be the closer in Boston, I think it's a firehouse. I really do. I mean, I watched Eovaldi pitch and he was a Yankee. And I know he had a great World Series. But so do a lot of players. Brian Doyle in 1978, he had a great World Series, didn't he? Yeah. What did he do after that? I know I'm going way back, but I'm just saying, you see so many players that can have that, moment of glory, but what did they do to follow it up? Eovaldi, he's not that kind of guy. Come on. So, and I'm looking at Chappie, Eovaldi, Jenry Maha split. I mean, who are these guys? I mean, we're talking about the Red Sox. We're talking about the World Series champs. And that's the kind of people, I mean, why didn't they go out and get a Britain during the offseason? I mean, they could have, right? They didn't. And of course, they didn't want to spend the money on Kimbrel. Wow. I wonder if they wish they had that one back. Just wondering. But anyway, trying to give you some ideas on how I look at trades. I look at run differential. And so we're looking at 10 teams out of 30 in the major leagues with a run differential over 40. Just 10 teams. How about Keston Hiura for the Brewers? Hit his third home run last night. It was a 2-run opposite field shot that cleared the high wall in right center field. Wow. He has hit .261 through his first 12 games in the bigs. And Keston Hiura is certainly someone, if he's available, doubt he is, but if he is, you need to get him. I tell you a player that I think takes a bad rap, and, disagree with me. I love it when you do. What about Colton Wong? Yeah, let's hear it for Colton Wong. I think Colton Wong is a pretty decent little fantasy player. I really do. And he offers a lot of different things. When he gets hot, we love him, but he's one of the first people we'll drop if he goes cold. Well, he's cold right now. Okay? He's 0 for his last 16. His average has dropped to 222. But let's look at some underlying numbers. Okay? All right, first of all, he has 6 homers and 25 RBIs and 7 stolen bases. He starts and has started 49 of the Cardinals' 52 games this year. He's only got a 14.7% K rate, so only strikes out 14.7% of the time. Okay? There's been a shift in his approach. He's hit fewer ground balls. His career rate coming into the year was 53.3. This year it's 45. His fly ball rate has increased. In 2018 it was 17%. This year it's 25%. So his average has dropped. All right, he's a career 252 hitter. Right now I told you he's hitting 222. But if he's able to increase his average closer to his career mark with the different changes in his approach he's made, he could have a breakout season. And you're like, okay, Colton Wong. Well, I mean, come on. And I know you're going to say, well, Jose Ramirez has played longer. Has he really? Okay, you'll hold on to a Jose Ramirez in fantasy. Why won't you hold on to a Colton Wong who's going to play every day for St. Louis in a fairly potent offensive lineup? I'm just asking questions this morning, guys. I'm just giving you something to think about. I'm just saying, if you're a hold-oner to Jose Ramirez, consider Colton Wong. He's made some changes in his approach, and he may be worth consideration in how deep a league you're in, and that's what it all depends on. It depends on the depth of your league. I'm not telling you to go pick him up. I'm telling you to take a look at him. Look at the needs of your team and look at the changes in his approach and the underlying numbers. His fly ball rate is up. His strikeouts are down. He should hit more home runs this year, and he's stealing bases. Another player that, has really had a hard time finding playing time this year is Raimel Tapia for Colorado. Yeah, I know, Lou, that Ramirez has been MVP candidate. I got that, and that's why I'm saying, you may want to hold on to him, but if you're going to trade him, I'm not trading him for chopped liver. That's why you asked me who I'd trade him for. I'm talking about Matt Chapman. I'm talking about Matt Carpenter. If I'm going to trade him, that's what I'm going to trade him for. I just say take a look around and see what's there. Chappie says 2 Wongs don't make a right. I agree. I'm talking about deep leagues, guys, when I'm talking about Colton Wong. I'm not talking about a 10-team league. I'm not going to go drop a good second baseman. I'm just saying if you have an middle infield need, he's someone to keep an eye on. Raimel Tapia, how about him? Let's talk about someone else. He took over the leadoff spot in that Colorado lineup. All right. He's had a hit in each of the last 5 games, slashing .282 on the year. He's making hard contact. He's got a hard hit rate of 39.4%. His previous hard hit rates were 22% in 2018, 13% in 2017. His exit velocity is almost 90. That's a career best. Those are all good numbers. They're all encouraging numbers. And he plays at Coors Field. Now, his power numbers haven't yet fully materialized. I got it. But his ground ball rate is 48.5%. Last year, he had a ground ball rate of 23%. If he can get back on track with that, continue to make hard contact, Tapia is a player just to look at. Keep your eye on him. Blackman's on the IL. Doesn't sound like it's going to be a long stint on the IL, but he's on the IL. He'll miss at least this week. And the Rockies are at home this week all week. So it looks like Tapia will probably start in those games at Coors Field. I think he's a great add if you're looking for some short-term help in the outfield. So keep your eye on Raimel Tapia. I'm not sure if you were with me last night, but I got a couple things I want to talk about just quickly to go over some things that we did talk about last night. How many of you have seen this morning where Carlos Correa is injured for Houston? Carlos Correa has some type of rib problem, and reports I'm reading out of Houston are that he may be on the shelf for 2 weeks. Ooh. Well, what are you going to do for 2 weeks? So I got an idea. And I want to play some clip I played off of YouTube from yesterday's show. I want to play it again for you this morning. This is A.J. Hinch.
I get asked about Alvarez as much as I get asked about Bregman. So it's every single day somebody will bring up Jordan Alvarez, and he's doing great things. We've had him move from first base to left field and DH and do a few things. One of the things that we really demand our guys, we want them to be viable options at a couple different spots. So yeah, we've had his arrival delayed a little bit because of the defense and certainly how our roster fits. The back of our roster is playing well. We've been giving Tyler White some at-bats to try to get out of his early season funk. Tony Kemp has come up and played well. Derek Fisher just came up and had a couple good hits yesterday. So it's a crowded roster, but he's worthy of a call-up any given day that we really feel like he's ready. Jeff and I both get asked about this kid so much, and I say kid. I'm not going to call him a kid when he gets here because he's like 6'5", 260 pounds, and big Cuban left-handed hitter. He can walk in, and he's not going to sneak up on anybody, both physically and numbers-wise, what he's doing in AAA.
Did you hear what he said? He's playing at outfield, he's playing DH, and he's playing first base. Okay, let's come back to that in just a minute when we hear the rest of the interview from, this is off of YouTube yesterday, A.J. Hinch talking about Alvarez.
What a lot of fans don't know is when guys are beat up. I've got Michael Brantley playing left, he's beat up. I've got Jake Marisnik had played 9 or 10 games in a row, which doesn't seem like a lot until you realize you're a bench player, and he's hitting balls off his shin, and both of his legs were bothering him, so I gave him a day off the other day. So the outfield coverage became really important for us, and we're trying to be perfect with Jordan Alvarez's arrival, and we were facing 5 or 6 lefties in a row from the back end of the Red Sox series to the beginning of the Cubs series, and he'll get here when he gets here, and it's a polarizing topic nowadays with all the talk of the various topics, but we have a good team. We have a good team that we like speed, we like versatility. He's going to get here soon, and once he's ready, hopefully he bursts on the scene like a lot of the young players, like the Austin Riley in Atlanta or Brandon Rogers in Colorado, and these franchises that are excited about these young players. He's going to be right up there with those guys.
Right up there with Austin Riley. So here's what, I'm looking at the schedule, I'm listening to the interview. He didn't want him coming up because he didn't want him facing those tough Chris Sale, Hamill, Quintana for the Cubs. So what's the schedule look like? Well, they play today against the Cubs, and Kyle Hendricks is a righty. So he could come up today because the way that interview goes, he could come up any day. That's what A.J. Hinch said. He's the manager. This isn't some podcaster talking. This is the manager of the Houston Astros talking. All right. Then they play Seattle. And so if he doesn't come up today, he could certainly come up this weekend for the Seattle series. After that, what's on tap? They're back home after the trip to Seattle. They go to Oakland, they go to Seattle, they got those 7 games on the road. Then they're back home next Friday in Houston. So if he's not up by Friday, that's my prediction. They play the Orioles in Houston starting a week from Friday. Jordan Alvarez, I think, is an imminent call based on what A.J. Hinch just said, and here's another reason. And this is fresh. Carlos Correa is probably going on the IL today. The logical move for me is to move Bregman over to shortstop, where he has played many games. Yuri Gurriel